Hey guys, today I am talking about 15 crops you can go from seed to harvest in 30 days or less. So let's head into the greenhouse and we'll start reviewing each one of those crops that you should start now. This is the beginning of the growing season. We're getting close to our last frost date, so you can start these inside your greenhouse, garage, cold frame, or wherever else you can do a protective area for your seeds so they're protected against frost. But this is the ideal time to start them. So the first thing we're going to talk about is radishes, and I'm going to give you 5 bullet points on each one of these particular crops that you can have harvested in under 30 days. Now, radishes prefer to be planted in well-draining soil with lots of organic matter. If you don't have a composter or a vermicomposter, I've got a couple of videos that show you how to make those. I'll link those up above. Now, if you're growing from seed, you're going to want to thin the seedlings out so they're not overcrowded and competing for nutrients in whatever medium you're starting it in. So just remember, you need to thin it out to 1 per about every 2 inches in your growing medium, and preferably you can start it in small cups as I've demonstrated before in previous videos. Now you want to harvest these when they come about 1 inch in diameter in the root area. You also want to plant these in the cooler time. This is the ideal time, late winter, early spring, because if you plant too late, the radishes themselves become a little bit spicy. Now the second crop we're going to talk about in an incredibly fast growing time is carrots, and you want to plant those in kind of a sandy soil so they can go straight and they're not having to work their way down through a heavy clay soil. Now you want to keep the soil moist but not waterlogged. And again, you want to thin out your carrots, your seedlings that are coming up, so there's not a competition and they'll have plenty of room to grow. And again, you want to harvest them when they're still very small to get the sweetest possible flavor out of those carrots. Now, one tip on getting lots of carrots throughout the season is to plant them in succession every 2 weeks, so you'll have crops coming in over and over without having them all come in at one time. Now, the next seeds we're going to start is going to be spinach. So you want to plant them in well-draining soil, and also you're going to want to incorporate compost into the soil before you plant. So if you plant these in your garden in open soil, you want to have a soil test meter to let you know whether or not the soil is dehydrated. You want it to be evenly moist in the soil. Now in warmer climates, you want to have a row cover, and also that row cover will protect against any insects that might attack it. Now our next seed we're going to be starting is leaf lettuce. Again, you're going to want to have well-draining soil, and you're going to want to add that compost for extra nutrients to keep your lettuce growing properly in under that 30-day period. Now, when you're harvesting your lettuce, you want to harvest the outer area of the leaves to allow the plant to keep growing so you can have multiple harvests. Also, you're going to want to provide a little bit of shade with row covers to prevent the lettuce from bolting. Also, you don't want to watch for slugs in your lettuce, and I have a video specifically about slugs, and I'll link that up above as well. Now, arugula is a leafy green, and it's also a very fast-growing crop that you should definitely try to grow at least once. It does great in salads, and I think you'll really enjoy it, and you'll really regret it if you find out later on how great it does taste. Now, again, you want this to be in well-draining soil to part sun or maybe a little bit of shade, but you don't want to have too much shade. Now, remember to water evenly, and you want to make sure that you don't put too much water on the leaves, which could cause a problem with diseases. So you can do some little bit of testing as to when you harvest, but the earlier you harvest, the milder your flavor will be on your arugula. And again, just like the lettuce, you want to cut the outer leaves to keep the plant producing. So again, growing this in cooler weather will help with bolting and also a bitter taste. Now, green onions is one of my favorite things to put in ramen, and also called scallions, and they will actually grow on your windowsill. You can cut them and they will literally come back from the base of the scallion or the green onion. But also out in the garden, you want to harvest them when their stems are thick enough, and you can pull them out of the ground completely without just cutting them. You just want to pull them completely out. Now you want to plant them in your garden in a sunny spot with fertile, well-draining soil. Now you can grow these from seeds, or you can regrow them from grocery store green onions or scallions, and that is super easy to do. As I said earlier, you can do that on your windowsill or even in the garden. It works a lot faster, and you'll have that produce, your crops, coming in even quicker, because your windowsill, they'll grow fine if you've got a really sunny window, but the garden will work much better. Now, bok choy or Chinese cabbage is another really fast growing crop that will be in under 30 days if you plant it and you get it in just the right conditions. Again, you want it in rich, loose, well-draining soil. You want to water consistently, but you don't want it to be waterlogged, and that's where your soil meter will come in again to make sure that the soil is moist but not overly wet. Now you want to protect it from cabbage worms with an organic product, and I've got some videos I made about using organic products in the previous videos I've done, and also I'll put a link down below to some of the products that I think work best as far as organic products that are safe for all your vegetables and your crops. Now the bok choy prefers cooler temperatures, so this is something you want to plant in early spring or in the autumn when things have started to cool down as well. Now mustard greens is also another product you want to plant in well-draining soil. You want to make sure you add compost for nutrients, and again you want to make sure you water it evenly to make sure that the tender leaves get plenty of moisture. Now mustard greens, you want to harvest those a little bit earlier because older leaves can have a bitter flavor to them. Now mustard greens can survive light frost as well. So radicchio is Italian chicory, and it can be used in pastas or it can be straight sauteed in a pan. Again, as with so many of the other crops we're doing today, you want to plant it in well-draining soil and add compost to the soil for added nutrition. You also want to do, just as you've done the others, you want to keep the soil consistently moist to make sure the roots don't dry out, and your new crops will wilt very quickly if the soil does dry. Now you want to harvest this when the heads are well colored, and also to reduce some of the bitterness you want to soak them for about 4 to 6 hours before you consume them. And as with some of the previous crops we talked about, heat is the enemy of them, and they can become a little bit bitter if you're growing them in the warmer time of the year. So early spring or late autumn is the best time to grow it. Now this kale I've been growing throughout the winter. It survived some really cold temperatures and it looks great, and this will probably go into a salad or a smoothie depending on how much kale I actually are able to harvest. So just remember, this can survive some really cold frost. And again, you want it to be in really rich soil, well draining. Now the way I've collected these from the plant is I've cut the outer kale and I've left the inner plant growing so it can produce more kale before it gets really warm weather. Now some of the pests that attack cabbage can also attack kale, so that goes back to the video I talked about having a natural, safe, organic pesticide. Now Swiss chard is another one that can grow very quickly. Also, you want to protect it from things like aphids. I've got another video that I produced about getting rid of aphids and spider mites, and I'll link that one up above as well. Now Swiss chard can tolerate cooler and not hot temperatures, but slightly warmer temperatures, so spring and fall are ideal times to grow it. Now turnip greens are one of my favorite things, especially with a little bit of sugar in them to cut back on the bitterness. You want to grow those, start them in seed trays, and thin the seedlings as they come out to 1, maybe 2 per cell. And make sure you harvest the leaves early and allow the roots to continue to grow. So you don't want to cut it too far back to the ground, but just maybe the top half of the leaves can be harvested on the greens. Now beet greens is another green that can grow very quickly and is easy to harvest as well. Now on the beet greens, you can harvest the smaller leaves early, or the older leaves you can saute them. There's also a type of green that most people don't know about, and that is Mizuna, which is a Japanese mustard green. So this type of Japanese green does prefer cooler weather, and you want to prune it back, and not all the way back, but just slightly back, and then that way it'll continue to produce for you. Now you can grow it again in partial shade in warmer climates. And also, this is another plant, this particular type of green can also be attacked by aphids. So you want to go back and carefully watch the video about aphids and how to keep them under control so you don't lose a lot of your greens. Now cress is the number 15 crop that you can grow very quickly in under 30 days. It's in the cabbage family. Now this one is so easy to grow, you can actually grow it on a paper towel inside as a microgreen. And just remember, you want to keep that paper towel or whatever other medium you're growing in moist to keep it producing. Also, cress doesn't require a lot of fertilization or really any at all if you're growing it on a paper towel, and it will have a nice peppery flavor. So I'm planning on making some videos about microgreens, and cress is one that you can grow continually no matter what time of year indoors. And you can do it as well in the garden or your garden beds. So guys, it is that time of year and I'm getting my seeds in the mail, and I'm planning on reseeding some of the seeds I'd left from last year. And so you want to get your organic mixes together and have it ready to go, because spring will be here before you know it, and then summer is right behind it. So I hope this video helped you, and I hope you'll try one of these 15 fast growing varieties that will have you consuming in your salad. Have a great day.